Hello everyone, this is Maritime Academy YouTube channel, and in this video we will continue to Annex 1 of MARPOL Convention with regulations 16 and 17. One more time I request you, please don't forget to subscribe my channel using this red subscribe button below the video, and also please hit the bell to see my newest video in the next weeks. So let's go to start this video with regulation 16. In Regulation 16 of Annex 1, we are talking about segregation of oil and ballast water, and also we are talking about carriage of oil in forepeak tank. So in this regulation, we are talking about these two important issues: segregation of oil and ballast water, and also the possibility of carriage oil in the tanks forward of the collision bulkhead. In Regulation 16, we have 4 paragraphs. The first one talking about fuel tanks, the second one talking about dirty ballast, the third one talking about forepeak tank, and the fourth one, which is the smallest part of this regulation, but this is the most important part of this regulation, which we will talk about that. Okay, let's talk about first paragraph of this regulation 16. In first paragraph of regulation 16, we are telling, except the vessels which complying with the paragraph 2 of this regulation, which we will talk about that later, the vessels which their delivery date is after 1st January 1979 for the oil tankers more than 150 tons GRT, and for other than tankers vessels more than 4,000 ton GRT, these vessels, they cannot carry the ballast inside the fuel oil tank. In paragraph 2 of this regulation, which is talking about dirty ballast, it says, in the case that there is no any other option, and we need to carry the dirty ballast inside the fuel tank, okay, we can do, but how we can do? We shall comply with the regulation 15 of Annex 1. I'm putting the link here. Just we talked about regulation 15, if you remember some days ago. I'm putting the link here. So now you are seeing that how much this regulation is important. So, possible in some cases, exceptional cases, carry the dirty ballast inside the fuel tank, but you shall comply with the regulation 15 of this annex by using which equipment? Equipment prescribed in regulation 14.2 of this annex. ODME, 15 ppm system, whatever it is. So, if you want to comply with the paragraph 2 of regulation 16 for carrying the dirty ballast inside the fuel tank, in exceptional cases, you shall comply with regulation 15 and 14.2 of this annex. I'm putting the link of these two, both of these two regulations there. Please have a review on both of them. So this was the paragraph 2 of the second paragraph of regulation 16. The third paragraph of this regulation talking about carriage of oil in forepeak tank or the tanks forward of the collision bulkhead. It says that the vessels that their building contract date is after 1st January 1982, or for the vessels which their building contract is not clear, their keel laying date is after 1st July 1982. These vessels cannot carry any oil inside of the forepeak tank or any tanks forward of the collision bulkhead. That's clear. The main part of this regulation is the most smallest part of this regulation, means paragraph 4. In paragraph 4 says, except for the vessels which complying with paragraph 1. But what was the paragraph 1? It was talking about the carriage of oil inside the fuel tank. And paragraph 3, which was talking about, just now we talked about this one, paragraph 3, which was talking about carriage of oil, possibility of carriage oil inside of the forepeak tank. Except these two, except the vessel which complying with these two part of this regulation, the other vessel shall comply with this regulation 16 as far as practicable and reasonable. Very important part. So, actually this regulation is giving wide berth to all vessels that in exceptional cases to carry the dirty ballast. But it says it shall be reasonable and practicable. It says that you should comply with regulation 15 and 14.2 of Annex 1. It means that you shall, if you want to discharge this dirty ballast, finally you should discharge this dirty ballast. So, okay. So, if you are going to discharge to reception facility, if you are going to discharge to water, to sea, so in these cases, you shall comply strictly with the requirements of Regulation 15 of this annex by using the equipment prescribed in Regulation 14.2 of this annex. And as per the paragraph 4, the most important part of this regulation, this act shall be reasonable and practicable. What does it mean? How can I tell you? Definitely we understand that we cannot carry 3,000 ton dirty ballast. Then how we can discharge this 33,000 ton dirty, for example, I'm talking about as an example, 3,000 ton dirty ballast you have on board, then how you can comply with Regulation 15? Which shore facility can take this dirty ballast, 30,000 ton, 3,000 ton, sorry? Or how you can discharge to the sea by using ODME, for example. So it is not practicable. It is not reasonable. So carrying this dirty ballast inside the fuel tank, inside of the forepeak tank, it shall be feasible. It shall be logical. It shall be practicable. It shall be reasonable. So that's why it's telling that any act in this regards for carrying the dirty ballast inside the fuel oil tank, inside the forepeak tank, you shall be able to comply with requirements of Regulation 15 of this annex by using the equipment in Regulation 14. So that's why it's telling that this job, this act shall be reasonable, shall be practicable. I think I made it clear, I wish. So it's the end of the Regulation 16. So let's talk about Regulation 17 of Annex 1. In Regulation 17 of Annex 1, we are talking about Oil Record Book Part 1. As you know, Oil Record Book Part 1 is for machinery space operations. We know that Annex 1 regulations generally talking about tankers with 150 tons GRT and more, and other tankers, other vessels with 400 tons GRT and more. In this regulation, means regulation 17 of Annex 1, also it says, in the first paragraph it says that the same vessels, means tankers with 150 tons GRT and more, and other vessel with 400 tons GRT and more, they shall carry the ORB Part 1, Oil Record Book Part 1, for machinery space operations. Also it says that in Appendix 3 of this regulation, of this annex, sorry, you can find the format, sample format of this oil record book, but anyway, you know that nowadays it is widely available everywhere. So also it says, and it's in this regulation, it's talking about the 5 main operation of in machinery spaces that shall be entered inside of this logbook. These are not the only operations that shall be inserted inside of these logbooks, but these are the main operations. Very easily to remember, actually. The first one is about fuel oil tank, means cleaning of fuel oil tank, taking ballast in fuel oil tank, as we talked about this one in regulation, previous regulation 16. The second one is dirty ballast, discharge of dirty ballast. The third one is a sludge oil. Sludge oil means collecting of a sludge oil and discharging of a sludge oil. The fourth one is dirty, better I tell you, bilge water. Better I tell you like this, bilge water, discharge of the bilge water of machinery spaces. And the last one is bunkering operation. So easy to remember all of these 5 operations, that these are the main operations that shall be inserted inside the ORB Part 1. But as I told you, these are not the only things that shall be inserted inside. It says that in case of any exceptional discharge, that shall also be inserted inside of the ORB Part 1. And it says that all of these operations shall be inserted inside this record book without any delay and by signature of the officer in charge at end of each operation and the signature of the master at end of each completed page. It is exactly written in this regulation. The other things that which can I tell you about this regulation, it says that any failure of oil filtering equipment also shall be inserted inside of this logbook. Also it says that this logbook shall be readily available for presenting to any authorities. Also it says that the competent authorities of governments which they are already party to this convention, means MARPOL Convention, they are allowed to ask you the copies of this record book, ORB Part 1. And it says that these copies shall be verified by the master of the ship. These are all the main parts of Regulation 17 of Annex 1, which was talking about ORB Part 1, Oil Record Book Part 1, for machinery space operations. Okay. Thank you everybody for watching me also this time. Let's talk about Regulation 18 on the next video. And thanks again for watching me.